Hey guys, it's Delora Dabbles here, and my family is sleeping, so I'm going to try to keep my voice down. But I figured what more beautiful place to do this than in front of my mom's antique book collection. You guys can ogle it. I'll shift back and forth while I talk about Weaving Fate by Aiden Wachter. I talked about his book 6 Ways, and I really liked these two. Oh my gosh, if you're gonna get one, you might as well get the other because they are such good companions, even though you don't need to read one to read the other. This one has a lot more practicum in it, a lot more like, here's some things that you should do or things that you could incorporate into your practice however way you want to. And so I'm going to get into those, but first, as always, I will show you guys the table of contents. Yes. So what I like about Aiden Wachter, and from having read this one and 6 Ways, it's very much like, it's very psychological. Like, he definitely incorporates how to use the brain's natural processes into your practice, into your magical practice. So I want to talk about the Black Book because this one is my favorite. And he calls the Black Book a hyper sigil. So a sigil is something you draw that means something important to you. It's a goal, or it's got a servitor spirit attached to it that's going to serve a function for you. And the Black Book is what he calls a hyper sigil, which is a sigil that you return to time and time and time again, and you still work on it time and time again. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a book or a journal. It could be a piece of artwork that you never stop working on, anything like that. But in this case, it is a book, it is a journal. And what you do in this journal is, he's got an entire consecration rites, and I took a lot of my ideas from my own consecration rite of my Black Book from this, but I then incorporated other things. And throughout his book, he encourages you to not just do what he tells you to do, but to do what feels right for you to do. For instance, I did not make a road opener sachet bag. I just put a road opener sigil of my own into, because like I had a journal that has like a pocket in the very back, so I just stuck it in there and consecrated that. But anyway, what you do in this Black Book is you write a diary entry basically of how your day will go, or a day in the life once you've reached all of your goals. So for instance, I'm here living at my parents' house again because I want to save up and buy an RV. So probably like the third entry that I made in there was like me waking up, I am at a national park in my RV. I'm describing how wonderful just my day in my RV is. And it's incredibly motivating to do that just on a psychological level. Like, take all the magic out of it, just on a psychological level. It is so motivating. And then you mix that with the magic that you're doing at the same time, and boom, like, it's just fantastic. I did a lot of extra stuff with my Black Book, and maybe I'll talk about it, maybe I won't. If you guys are interested, maybe I'll tell you. But moving on, the walking the corridor. So you know how like everyone thinks that astral projection is one type of thing, and that shamanism and trance states and blah blah blah. I love books that talk about having a starting spot, right? Whether this is your inner temple for like Christopher Pinchak's version, whatever it is, he gives you that kind of starting spot, but then he also gives you this corridor idea, and he's like, you're going to know where you're going, right? But you're just going to walk the corridor first, and then whenever a door feels right, you'll go through that door, but you already know what memory you're trying to get into. He talks about using your memories first. This is, again, a very highly effective psychological tool because you're going into a memory, and all of the examples he lists are reparenting yourself, which is something that I'm working through the Inner Child Workbook. I believe it's by Glenn Schiraldi, for my own PTSD. And walking the corridor, as he explains it, is reparenting. It's being there for yourself when no one else was, or maybe you were given a hard time or abused, right? And he stresses the importance of not going into a memory that is too painful right off the bat. Start with the little things. It's fantastic. So now whenever I do my reparenting techniques from the Inner Child workbook, I actually walk the corridor instead of just imagining, as the psychological textbook tells me to imagine. I go into trance and I walk the corridor and do it, and it is more effective to me, probably because, again, psychologically, ritual is our brains love ritual. And so, again, this book is so psychological. The third one that he has in here is the Fever Stone, which basically it's a rock of importance to you. He suggests just finding a river stone somewhere, a place that you like or something like that, just a regular rock, and you're going to wash it every day. And as you are washing it, you are going to wash off energetic stuff, right? Just energetic, like filth. And like he also talks about the importance of imagining that you're also washing off, it goes back to the whole idea of the sins of the father, right? Follow and go down to the son. So he's also talking about washing off the trauma and the bad energy from your family lineage on this plane of existence, your spiritual lineage in the astral, as well as what's happened to you in your life here now, right? So again, like, because you are incorporating your entire body into an action, this is also very psychologically powerful, because the brain, yeah, you can sit in your own head and tell your brain, nah, we're fine, we don't need to think about that, it's fine. Or if you do have a trauma response or a trigger to something, and you're like, and you do your breathing and you're like, great, I accept this feeling. I don't want to have this feeling, but I know why I'm feeling this feeling, and that's okay. It's okay for me to feel this way. But you're just telling yourself those things. But if you actually incorporate it into an action, i.e. washing the stone, your entire body is getting in on it, right? So it's more psychologically powerful, I feel like, to do that. So haven't started the Fever Stone yet, but I plan to soon. And yeah, I like it a lot. He talks about also fear, death, and the big wave. I love this chapter. I'm not going to talk too much about it because there's a lot of stuff in it, but I like having read that chapter because now I understand where the author is coming from. I like it whenever authors, especially metaphysical authors, talk about their big ideas about life and death and how our brains work, because then I can be like, okay, this practitioner is a more psychologically inclined practitioner, or this practitioner is a more energy body type practitioner. Just the words that most authors use, I can pick up on what type of way they lean. Not that those are the only two ways that you can lean, but you guys know what I mean. Like, different practitioners have different ideas about how basic functions work in our life on this plane. And whenever the author actually tells you, here's how I feel like things work, then that really, it lays everything bare, and you know exactly what kind of practitioner they are. And again, like, I need to read something from a practitioner that I can jive with, right? Because I'm very much psychologically minded, which is probably why I like Aiden Wachter so much. Once people get a little bit too crazy woo-woo, or if they even talk about aliens, I'm like, out, and like, you might be the opposite. So I always like to kind of talk about where the author might be coming from on things like that. These books are thin. You can blast through them. I read through the entire book before I started doing any of the stuff, because I kind of wanted to see where he was going with it. But he also has, once he gets into the practicum, the beginning of those chapters are all like, here's how you consecrate it, here's how you do it. Please read the rest of the chapter before you actually do it, so you get a better understanding of it. And he gives examples from an example, right, from a lady named X, right? And so he has like sample journal entries, right? And kind of how your journal entries in the black book can morph, how your corridors can morph, right? Like maybe you have an idea that the corridor is more of a castle, but then one day you go into the corridor and it just looks like a regular like office hallway. Go with it. Things like that that are really like concrete, and you're like, okay, so you have a very, very good understanding of how all of these exercises work before you actually get into them. And that's what I like. Sometimes authors will just go into an exercise and they won't give you that much. It's really just a spark of an idea for yourself, right? But you don't really understand like what the author intends for you to do with that spark of an idea. And Aiden Wachter gives you the whole example, right? And so I had a very good understanding of how it would work. So yeah, I hope you guys like this book review. There's also stuff in the beginning where he actually talks about like hyper sigils in depth. Background and base is the first chapter after the introduction, and that's a very, very good chapter. Roots of the Tree talks about trance. The soul spirit complex is where he talks about like how your spirit and body and mind work together. You know what I mean? Yeah. Telling true lies is also a very good one. It's kind of like if you tell yourself you're going to have a bad day, you're going to have a bad day. If you tell yourself you're going to have a good day, you're going to have a good day. And it's taking that and like expanding it to everything and making it bigger. And it really just, after reading this book, I was like, the mind is even more powerful than I thought it was. You know, like we all know that our minds are powerful. We create our own reality, right? We could see an accident as being like, oh, why did this happen to me? Or what benefit do I get from this accident? Did I get a flat tire that helped me avoid a large wreck on the interstate? Whenever you have optimism and you look for signs and you make sense of the world in a different kind of way, your world is going to be shaped that way. Whereas if you just see everything as an inconvenience and a why me, your world is going to look very different, right? So again, very psychologically minded, very like chaos magic, but like still a lot of witchcraft in it, if that makes sense. Not that chaos magic doesn't have a lot of witchcraft, but just like some of the newer stuff I've been reading. I'll flip through something on chaos magic that's been published in the last 3 years, and it's very scientific, whereas this is very psychological, if that makes sense. And there's a difference. Psychology is a science, but it's not like, we're not talking like nuclear physics to understand magic. We're talking, how can we be better people? How can we be the people that we want to be, right? And really, Aiden Wachter stresses how becoming the person you want to be is the most important, and everything else will fall into place for you. And I totally agree with that sentiment. I've experienced that a lot in my life. So anyway, I hope you guys like this book review. I hope you have enjoyed staring at the antique book collection. If you guys like this background, maybe I will try to do more of my book reviews with this background, and maybe I'll show you guys some of these books at some point. But anyway, until next time, happy dabbling and bye-bye.